Here we go, Chapter 1, Introduction to Macroeconomics. Alfred Marshall is one of the great economists of the late 1800s and early 1900s, and a lot of what we do still is affected by him. He said that economics is the study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. What he meant by that is that econ covers more than just business or making money or things that your mom might think it belongs to. It covers anything that has to do with how you live your life, whether it has money implications or not money implications. Economists study things like crime in society and environmental issues and all sorts of policy issues that have nothing to do with money. It's the ordinary business of life. So why is there economics in the first place? The answer goes back to a very basic concept. We have this idea that human beings have unlimited wants, that human beings, no matter how much they have, are never satisfied and always want more. When you get your Corvette, you want a Ferrari. When you add the Ferrari to your collection, you feel the need for a Lamborghini. There's just no end to what you want. But at the same time, your resources are limited. And by that we mean you don't have enough time and money and energy to do everything you want. And even if you think you do, you don't. There's only 24 hours a day, only 365 days in the year, and you can only be one place at a time. That means that we have a fundamental economic condition. That fundamental economic condition is called scarcity. If there's one word that defines economics, that's it. Resources are scarce, and we have to deal with the fact that resources are scarce. How are we going to deal with the fact that resources are scarce? The answer is that we have to make choices. We have to choose. If we're rich, we still can't go to the Broncos game and the Patriots game on the same day unless the Broncos happen to be playing the Patriots. We're going to have to choose one game. We can't go to both restaurants we'd like to go to for dinner tonight because we'll be full after we eat at the first one, and it wouldn't make us happy to eat at the second one. We have to choose. To make good choices, we have to consider both the costs and the benefits of those choices. When people do bad, it's usually because they're thinking of one or the other. They buy a car because they're thinking about the great time they're going to have, and then they realize they spent too much money. Or they sit home at night and don't go out because all they can think about are the costs potentially of a night on the town, and they don't think about what fun they might have. Economists are going to look at cost differently than accountants or other people who don't know what they're doing will tell you about cost. Cost of things doesn't just include the money you have to pay. Cost of things includes things you give up. So if you choose to go to the Broncos game, you gave up the chance to go to the Patriots game. If you pay $100 to go to a concert, but now your best friend is mad at you because they wanted to go with you and you didn't tell them, then their anger at you is part of the cost of you going to that concert. If you start your own business and you were making $500,000 a year working for a company and now you're making $100,000 running your own business, you gave up $400,000 a year to do that, and that's part of the choice. Okay? If we think about what that means, it means that there are both money costs and non-money costs associated with the choice. The money costs of making a choice we call explicit costs. So the $100 you pay to go to a concert, that's an explicit cost. The non-money costs we call implicit costs. So if you make your mom mad at you, if you gave up a great job opportunity to go start your own business, that job is part of the opportunity cost. It's an implicit cost. things that you give up that don't have money attached to them. Now, the other part of making a choice is that you should make your choices on what we call the margin. That means you don't choose to eat pizza or not eat pizza because of all the great times you've had eating pizza in the past. You make those choices based on whether you want to have more pizza. So if you've had 3 slices of pizza and everything's good, you may choose not to have another slice of pizza, even though you enjoy pizza. You might choose to have another slice, but your decision should be based on that slice alone, not on how much you enjoyed the other slices of pizza. This applies to everything we do, to businesses, to if you're an airline and you have an empty seat on a plane, you can charge a really low price for that last seat at the last second because it's better to charge a low price than it is to let that plane fly off free. You care about the marginal, the last, one more or one less. Okay, so traditional economic theory has a very simple way of looking at people. We believe that people are out there trying to cover their own self-interest. In other words, you as an individual first are interested in your own happiness. We don't use the word happiness, we use the word utility. And therefore, we're going to say that your job in life is to maximize your utility, that you're out there trying to make yourself as happy as you can. And when you make a decision, that decision is based on whether it makes you happy. You may think you're doing something nice because you like to do nice things, but you did that nice thing not because of the happiness it gave to someone else, but because of the happiness it gave to you. We call this rational behavior. We believe that it's rational to pursue your own self-interest and to do what you think is best for you. Businesses, by the way, also face scarcity. Businesses have to decide what they're going to make, what they're going to sell. Businesses can't have all the workers they want, all the resources they want. They have to make choices too and deal with scarcity. In the business world, it's just as complex, maybe more complex. Businesses have to deal with what we call the factors of production. So first, you can see that there's something we call labor. Labor is the people who work for you. There's also something called capital. Capital is things that are made by people whose sole purpose is to make other things. So capital is factories and the machines in factories and the tables and stoves in a restaurant, the hammers and saws used by construction workers. And then finally, we have a very broad category that we simply call land, which includes all the gifts of nature. The actual land and the resources in it and the air and the ocean and the birds and the trees and the cows, all those things fall under this category of land. Now, land doesn't just jump together by itself and decide it's going to start a business. Some human being, whether it's Henry Ford or Tony Stark or some recent college graduate who decides to go off and start their own business. That person is called an entrepreneur, which is a French word that we take to mean risk taker. That person is the one who's going to stand to lose. If the business fails, they put their money in, nothing happens. They lose that money, but they're also the ones who stand to make a fortune if the business succeeds. The interest of the entrepreneur is in making profit. There's no reason to go into business. People say, oh, we're here to serve you. No, you're here to make money. That's why you go into business. You start a business. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's doing all this stuff. But you're not going to stay in business if you're not making money. And, of course, we use the term of profit for that. Economics is largely about incentives. Incentives mean that we're encouraging certain behaviors. So when we cut your taxes, we're encouraging you to go spend more money. That's an incentive. it's very important to understand that both consumers and businesses are incredibly affected by the incentives we give them. When we change taxes, when we put in a government regulation or take out a government regulation, we're creating incentives. When your mom tells you something, she's creating an incentive, and we respond to those incentives. So the incentive that we put out there, some people might think that that's a positive incentive and helpful for the world, and some people might think that that's a negative incentive and not helpful for the world. But the key to us is that when we get those incentives, we respond to them, and we're fairly predictable in how we do actually respond to them. Okay, some terms we need to talk about. One of those is market. A market is a place where buyers and sellers get together and try to negotiate an exchange. The Albertsons that you shopped at the other day, you probably didn't get to negotiate with the clerk when you went up there and were worried about the price. But that's okay, because you don't actually have to negotiate one-on-one. If you go to a lot of countries, you sit there and you can negotiate, right? The person's there and you can say, hey, I only want to pay you this for that, and they'll negotiate, and off you go. Most of the time, people don't like to do that. But that doesn't mean that Albertsons isn't a market. There are lots of sellers of lettuce, and there are lots of buyers of lettuce. And if one particular Albertsons is charging $20 for a head of lettuce, they'll quickly figure out that no one wants to buy that lettuce, and they'll have to change the price. If, on the other hand, they are selling those heads of lettuce for 10 cents, they may quickly figure out that that's a silly thing to do, and they should raise the price. So we don't need to have one-on-one negotiations. We can still negotiate. But the key is that buyers and sellers get together. No one sets the price. No one in person, no one business, no one anything. That price gets set in the marketplace by all of us acting together. Okay? We want to make sure that what we're doing is scientific. And so as we go through this class, it's important to remember that theory should always come with some proof, some evidence. We don't ever believe that you prove a theory, even though we use that word. We don't actually prove it right. What we can do is disprove a theory. If you say, if X happens, Y will happen, and if X happens, Z happens, you may just have disproved your theory that X causes Y. We need to think about those theories.